Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. We have already survived a pre-show scare, but we're here in one piece, and we're here for the next 2 hours discussing sports topics of local, regional, and national interest. So glad to have you along for the ride. Wade, good Tuesday.
Good Tuesday to you, my man. Looking forward to a good show. Got a great guest lineup. Bunch of topics to get into. Like you said, we'll do a little bit of everything. We'll go preps. We'll go all the way to pros even. It's going to be a fun Tuesday, I feel like.
Preps to pros, as Blaine Keller reminded us in your stead last Tuesday. Yes, we will. We've got some preps to cover. We've got some pros to cover and everywhere in between. So it's going to be fun. In the next hour, we will visit, as we typically do on Tuesdays, with the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters. Pretty quiet on campus, I would think. But yeah, Chip's got some stuff he's supposed to report back to us on from last week, though, Wade. Well, you weren't here last week.
Gave him some homework, it sounds like.
We did. We gave him some homework, gave him a summer assignment, and so we'll see how well he did with that. In the next segment, we will be visiting with John BRICE of footballscoop.com, because college football is never off limits, right?
Always something to get into with CFB, and always kind of something to talk SEC, but even some national news going on.
Absolutely. So looking forward to speaking to John BRICE in the next segment, and again, Chip Walters in the next hour, the pride of the Dimple. So we'll get him in, and we'll be talking some Braves, be talking some Major League Baseball. There was a basketball game last night, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably need to talk a little bit about that.
NBA season has come to a close, but fear not, Mo, because free agency began at midnight. So we're off and running into free agency.
Well,
now.
there we go.
So
there we go. Also, the big three is cranking up, right?
That I could not tell you, but I assume so. I think I saw a schedule. That's usually a little lower on my topics list, but I do think they get cranked up at some point. Because they're coming to Nashville, if I remember correctly, again this year.
Okay, that should be interesting. Okay, can never go too long without some portal news, and this is going to be interesting when we get into this. And as we said, going from preps to pros, we've had a couple of area high school football players decide where they will be pursuing their collegiate football careers. So looking forward to discussing that here before we go off the air. So a lot to get to. We should probably start by getting to yesterday's results, such as they were, and today's schedule, such as it is, on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Tuesday rundown, boys and girls. We kick things off with a score from Major League Baseball last night as the Braves defeated the Tigers. Low-scoring game, but Atlanta wins it 2-1 to cap your MLB scoreboard of rooting interest there. WNBA action last night. Minnesota, the Lynx are playing very well this season. They picked up a 90-78 win, knocking off Dallas. Good win for the Lynx last night to cap our scoreboard.
Today's action at 6:20, the Tigers and Braves continue their series down at Truist Park. That's a 6:20 first pitch. You can see it on Valley Sports South. At 7:10, Houston opens its series at, well, it's not Comiskey Park anymore, but on the south side of Chicago, taking on the White Sox. Again, that's a 7:10 start. At 6:35, the Sounds open a 6-game series at First Horizon Park against visiting Durham. WNBA action at 6. It's the Los Angeles Sparks at the Connecticut Sun. Again, that's a 6 o'clock tip. You can see it on NBA TV. And at 9 on CBS Sports Network, it's the New York Liberty at the Phoenix Mercury. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your rundown. Top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and Check out their delicious daily deli lunch items, which are available until 6 o'clock, as well as their hand cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And again, the transfer portal is always in a giving mood. This is no different. Actually, we probably could have touched on this yesterday, but I think we had plenty yesterday, and this is good. Stanford pitcher Najari Kennedy, this is softball, has entered the transfer portal after 2 stellar seasons with the Cardinal. She will have 2 years of eligibility remaining wherever it is that she winds up, which obviously could ultimately be Stanford, of course. But she's the reigning pitcher of the year nationally. She's at Stanford. Where are you going? Stanford's been to the Final Four each of the last 2 years. I'm perplexed over this one, Wade. I mean, the transfer portal does tend to perplex us from time to time, but this, and I mean no disrespect to anybody with anything that I say in this segment, but I don't know how much better of a situation you can put yourself in if you are a softball player than getting a Stanford education.
There's a lot to be said for that. That is for sure. And that is definitely one way to look at it, is that degree in a world where degrees seemingly mean less and less. That's one that still carries a lot of clout, it feels like. So that is certainly a head scratcher. The only, the 2 immediate thoughts that came to mind was, number one, maybe move back a little closer to home, which, as fate would have it, is smack dab in the middle of Topeka, Kansas, and conveniently located close to Oklahoma. Just something to keep your eyes on there, your antenna up, if you will. Texas,
that could never happen, could it?
Yeah, Texas, obviously, in the mix. And then the other thing in this day and age, anytime we bring up a transfer is, maybe not a transfer so much as it's kind of a free agency deal and kind of a chance to renegotiate a little bit, perhaps.
There is that, and that is certainly to be considered. And I don't know what NIL situations are in softball, particularly at the top of the softball pecking order, which is where Stanford, Oklahoma, and Texas all reside pretty much. So, maybe this is a renegotiation situation. It's she has got to be the number one player in the portal, I would think. She gave up 5 earned runs in 26 innings of 4 Women's College World Series games. And she is just generally recognized as the best pitcher in the country. So, and I wonder, Stanford situation, they're going into the Atlantic Coast Conference next year. A lot of cross-country travel. I mean, maybe she just didn't want to do that. I don't know. It's odd to me, but I mean, I have said throughout, and I will continue to say, this is those players and their families' decisions to make, and I'm not disrespecting it. It just, from where I sit, it seems a little odd.
Yeah, it does seem, I suppose, odd for sure. And that's kind of where I'm wondering, Mo, is getting back closer to home maybe, but also, wink, wink, just maybe landing at the dynasty of college softball. I mean, that would seem like a natural potential fit, kind of best of both worlds situation. Maybe make a little extra cash in the deal as well and play in the SEC. I'm not real sure. And then, as you mentioned too, I mean, we could look at a situation where all this is kind of just testing the waters, and then, maybe get a little bit bigger bag and end up back at Stanford next year.
Yeah, maybe Stanford just needs to show a little more love. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
come up off the cash, Cardinal, a little bit.
you know, Oklahoma just seems so cut and dried here that you know it seems so obvious that maybe it's too obvious. But I mean, they are the four-time defending national champion, so it's almost like they get their pick of the litter at some point, and so maybe it is that simple. I don't know. But
Texas obviously in that mix too, so that would be another possibility if you kind of go with the get closer to home, but also
mhm.
play for a top tier program. That seems like that certainly could be a good fit, or maybe just abandon the West Coast entirely and maybe move on into the Southeastern Conference in earnest, if you will, and kind of transfer to a program kind of already in the SEC before these two arrive.
Mhm. Yeah, Florida is mentioned in an article on the Sporting News on this, as well as Texas and Oklahoma. And we talked about this last year when Laura Mueller left Middle Tennessee State and went to UT. It's got to be a little discouraging. It is what it is. It's not going to change anything, but it's got to be a little discouraging when you identify a kid, develop a kid, get them to that elite level of competition and that elite level of play, and then you lose that kid in a bidding war. Again, it's where we are, but if I'm Middle Tennessee State in Laura Mueller's case, if I'm Stanford in Najari Kennedy's case, it's a little discouraging to say the least.
Yeah, if I'm in the coaching ranks, obviously this is one that would you're already not sleeping much at night anyway, but this is one that'll make you sleep even less
Even less.
because you're talking about you've identified, you do all the right things, you get her there. It's not as if Stanford was, a complete slappy, as we've mentioned.
Hmm.
This is a quality program, but it's enough to make you really, really frustrated if it comes down to as simple as, well, either they were going to give more money or this team was just better if you end up kind of like in an Oklahoma situation. So I certainly see the frustration. I certainly see as we've said, fatigue that would weigh on coaches in that situation.
Yeah, and we've talked about coaches that have, moved on. We talked about Paul Maneri coming back last week in this current landscape, as so many coaches are saying, I can't deal with this. And it's tough. I mean, again, I'm for the athletes. I want the athletes to have their freedom of movement. I want the athletes to secure the bag, but at the same time, I can see where this would be discouraging and even maddening for the coaches of those programs that are losing those players. So I really feel like anyway, I'm pretty objective about the situation. I mean, the kids for so long have not been able to either you know, benefit necessarily from their abilities, or B, have that freedom of movement. And so again, both of these things need tweaking. And I don't think there's anybody that would tell you otherwise. But I think the situation probably is better now than it was 5, 8 years ago, both in terms of NIL and the transfer portal, because, you know, movement was so limited before, and having to sit out and having to get, waivers and permission from the school that you're leaving and that kind of thing. And you ran into, you know, petty coaches, petty administrations that, no, we're not signing anything. And, the whole thing. So I think it's a better situation. It's a more athlete friendly situation for sure. Maybe it's too athlete friendly.
Well, it seems like that's what we're seeing, right? Is the coaches and administrators went from having complete and utter authority on the situation to having, in many
None.
respects, virtually none,
None.
and they're not too happy with it. So
Yeah.
this will probably end up balancing out. It's probably going to take a couple more years to to find a potential happy medium, but that's kind of where we are right now, is all the power is kind of shifted toward the athletes, especially in this case, a superstar athlete.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, rightfully so. The coaches and administration have had just everything totally turned upside down on them. But it's a complete counterbalance to what we saw, as you said, for virtually the entire history of college athletics prior to now.
Yeah. And again, I don't know what NIL is doing in softball. I don't know what's out there. I don't know what the going rate is for the top pitcher in the country. I guess we're about to find out. But some of the numbers that you hear in the quote major sports, football, men's basketball, that kind of thing, some of those numbers that you hear are really, really mind-boggling to me.
This is from last year, Mo, but on three's softball chart for some of their top players, Montana Fouts at Alabama, their on three evaluation was about $146,000, but then it drops off a fair amount. Maya Brady, who's at UCLA, their on three evaluation is about $71,000.
Half that.
Yeah, Jordy Ball from Oklahoma, $62,000. So still some decent money, no doubt about it. And that's presumably only going to go up as we kind of place a little more emphasis, especially when you're talking about programs in the SEC, programs that have done a good job of developing an NIL or developing a collective. They're going to be the ones that kind of have a chance to really splash some cash. And that's just, I believe, just coming from, true NIL evaluations. And I looked up Kennedy's social just very quickly. I haven't got on TikTok. That's the ultimate game changer. But, her numbers are decent. What, 4,000-ish or a little bit more Twitter followers, respectable. And then, 22,000 Instagram followers. So I don't know what TikTok is doing, but I mean, that's a total another piece of this puzzle too, is the social media element aspect, kind of like we've seen with our gymnasts down at LSU. I mean, you can just totally change this thing and flip it on its head. And so it's going to be wild to see how this plays out. Obviously, we're not used to an elite. I mean, basically one of your best players in the entire country is now up for grabs this offseason.
No doubt. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to pay attention to. Again, is it just as simple as Najari Kennedy winds up at Oklahoma, refortifying a roster that has already won 4 consecutive national championships? Think about that for a minute. I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but if you signed as a freshman at Oklahoma as part of their 2021 recruiting class, you graduated this spring and you've never done anything but win national championships.
Crazy, isn't it?
That's hard to believe. It really is. Hey, let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll be visiting with John BRICE of footballscoop.com. Stay with us after this break.
Wild horses are coming to Franklin. The Mustang Heritage Spectacular. 4 days of celebrity freestyle, liberty training, trick riding, and extreme Mustang makeover. Plus the shopping. Over 100 vendor spaces with clothing, food, home goods, and things you can't find anywhere else. All that and celebrity signings at a music stage too. June 20th through 23rd at Williamson County Ag Expo Park. Don't miss a moment with a weekend pass. MustangHeritageFoundation.org for tickets.
Hello, race fans, and welcome to Nashville Super Speedway.
That's right, guitars and fast cars right here in Music City. This summer, NASCAR is back at the Nashville Super Speedway. Get your tickets now to watch your favorite driver take on the 1.33 miles of concrete chaos. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to lock in your spot June 28th through the 30th for the Ally 400 race weekend.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We are Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Never a bad time to talk college football, and anytime you can talk it with John Brice of footballscoop.com, it's a great time, and that's what we're getting ready to do here in this segment. John Brice, what's up?
Mo, glad to join you. I appreciate the invitation as always. Hope you boys are doing well.
We are doing well. I guess this is the time when you catch your breath, right?
In theory, a little bit, but we're trying to launch some new features coming up over the next 6 weeks or so at Football Scoop. So that's fun. Still news out there, so we're still chasing some of that. And Deion Sanders seems to be the storyline that gives in perpetuity, and I'm here for it. So, no, not
John. Did you know you'd ever be writing stories about Lil Wayne concerts and college football?
I did not. No, that's a great question. I did not know that. But it's been fun to watch Deion's evolution since he arrived at Jackson State. I've written probably more about Deion than any other subject in college football since about the fall or late fall of 21. Like I said, it's been really fun. I think he's good for the sport. I think he is well-intentioned, and he certainly is a lightning rod who drives traffic. So I'm okay with all of those things.
Good for the sport and well-intentioned. I think you would get some pushback on both of those. Not necessarily from me, but I'm just saying, as I survey social media and that kind of thing, not everybody is on that page as it relates to Coach Prime.
Yeah, you're right, Mo. There are some people who are not on that page, but I think if people in general are able to disconnect any personal biases that they may have just towards maybe his flamboyance or his personality, or maybe they still have maybe they were a huge Cowboys fan when he went to the Niners, or vice versa, whatever. Maybe there's something deep rooted there. But I think he's good for it. I love what he has said consistently about NIL and what a sham it is right now, that it's not NIL, that it's almost overwhelmingly pay for play. I love his statements on that. He's a point. Look, we all know we would know Shador or Shiloh Sanders if they walked into my den or your studio right now. And that's what NIL is supposed to be. They have a name, image, and likeness, just like the Downs kid leaving Alabama and going to Ohio State after proving himself one of the best defensive players in all of college football, freshman or otherwise, last year. He has an image, a likeness. Quinn Ewers now has that at Texas. Arch Manning is developing that. Those are true NIL opportunities. A lot of the rest of it is pay for play. He doesn't like pay for play. He insists they're not going to do that, but he does present his players with opportunities. And Shador Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, and Travis Hunter are three of the most paid college athletes right now. And again, they have the profiles to say that brands want to be associated with them because of those profiles.
You make a heck of a point. He makes a heck of a point. How do we get NIL back to what it was intended to be? Do we get NIL back to what it was intended to be?
Yeah. How do you get toothpaste back in the tube? I don't know the answer to that question. How do I straighten out my drive off the tee box? I don't know the answer to that question. So that's where we are. There are steps being taken. I think that revenue sharing and some of the other things that are on the horizon are steps to equalize it. I think you have to get coaches in agreement. And look, a lot of the coaches are in agreement that it needs regulating. Also, a lot of the coaches are in agreement that they're not going to say anything publicly because they don't want it to be used against them in recruiting. And if you've got maybe a certain high-profile coach in the SEC, what would normally be the SEC West, who's also a little bit of a lightning rod, and he's got a $12 million NIL salary cap, and maybe somebody else who has a famous last name who might be in a really key year at a quote-unquote SEC Eastern Division school, and he has a $7 or $8 million NIL salary pool. Well, you could say you want uniformity, but right now the advantage is the guy who has the deeper pockets.
John Bryce joining us here on Main Street Sports today, and comes in hot as we expected. John, there was a development, I guess, that was kind of announced earlier today, a scheduling development. Ohio State will be taking on visiting Grambling in 2025, dropping UConn to make room for the Tigers. It strikes me as a lot like the Notre Dame-Tennessee State game from last year up at South Bend. What are your thoughts about these type matchups? What do you think about this matchup in particular?
You know what? It's going to be a massively nationally televised contest. We don't know which network yet. Probably Peacock, but it's still going to be a tremendous platform for Grambling. Grambling is the HBCU program that I most vividly remember from my youth. It's the one that I think arguably has the deepest, most storied tradition. And I got to visit with Eddie George because I live in South Bend. I think many of you know that. I got to visit with Eddie George when Tennessee State was here last fall. I visited with Eddie George subsequent to that. We had some great conversations about what it meant for Tennessee State to come to South Bend and come to Notre Dame. I'm a proponent of them. I was not a proponent of when Tennessee, maybe in 2011, became, I think, the last SEC school to play an FCS school. And it played either UT Martin or Montana early in a year, probably under Derek Dooley, after it had not played a 1AA FCS opponent since 1982 in the Citadel. And I was, I thought it was good for Tennessee that the Vols had not played a 1AA team or an FCS team. I still don't know that those are the best, but when they can be meaningful, if you're keeping the money in state or if you're giving an opportunity to an HBCU institution, again, Eddie George has lived a life in football that is a model and an inspiration to so many. And when he talked to me back in December when I was working on a feature story about his program, and we started talking about Notre Dame and me living in South Bend, and he shared how impactful it was to have brought his team here, how much it meant, how many good friends he now has who are connected to Notre Dame, then you hope that it's a similar experience for Grambling at Ohio State. So it's not a great game for fans from a competitive balance standpoint, but I think it's a great event.
Yeah, big for visibility, if nothing else. John, you mentioned Notre Dame a couple of times, so I got to ask you, I'm kind of scratching my head. I didn't know necessarily what to make of Notre Dame potentially heading into this year, but it's Marcus Freeman's third season. Yeah, they lose Joe Alt and a couple other big key pieces, but we've heard so much about Texas, Ohio State, and obviously Georgia here in SEC country. Where does Notre Dame kind of fit in the national puzzle heading into 24?
Yeah, great question. I think that anyone reasonable, anyone rational, and anyone who studies college football would tell you it will be a tremendous disappointment if Notre Dame isn't positioned to be one of those 12 teams in the college football playoff at the end of the year. They've got a little bit more manageable schedule this year than in recent years, particularly a year ago when they had Ohio State at home, when they had to go to Clemson, when they had to go to a red-hot Louisville as part of a stretch of like 8 consecutive games to open the season, including having flown over to Ireland to open their season over there and just having some really long travel. They open at Texas A&M. I think that's tough. I think that's probably a game when I do some local podcasts or do some other appearances. I think that's a game much more tough than a lot of people maybe close to the Golden Dome or who favor the Leprechaun want to acknowledge. I think it's a really tough game. I've been to College Station. I've been a sideline reporter at College Station. I was there like the second weekend of October a few years ago. It was insanely hot then. This is going to be the last Saturday in August. It's a completely different type of heat. And right now at South Bend, yesterday we had heat index of feels like 99. That's trust me, the aberration, not remotely the norm, not even in the depths of summer. And so I just think that stadium, Notre Dame will have never played in front of 110,000 fans like will be there that night. It's a night game. It's going to be insane. Mike Elko is a great coach. He nearly beat Notre Dame last year at Duke. I think that's a really, really tough game. They open at A&M. They close at USC. They've got a really manageable schedule in the 10 games between that. If they're 11-1, they'll host a playoff game. If they're 10-2, they leave a lot to chance.
And then on the kind of in a similar mold, what should we or what can we expect out of Alabama? So much being made about Kalen DeBoer coming in. And yes, he's got a fantastic pedigree, but we know great quote that I heard, all offseason was you win 10 games at Washington and you're borderline getting a statue built of you. But if you win 10 games at Alabama, you're probably getting fired in a year or two. Where does DeBoer and where does this year's Crimson Tide team fit in your mind?
Yeah, another really good question. Appreciate you, because I will say briefly, you touched on some of the top teams. I'm a firm believer that Texas and Georgia are the top 2 teams. I think they're both ahead of Ohio State at this point in time. I like the quarterback situation much, much better for both of those teams than I do for Ohio State where we are right now. Ohio State's really good at wide receivers, some other spots. Georgia and Texas would be my number 1 and 2 teams, and it might be Texas 1, Georgia 2. But I think those two are in a class of their own. If Alabama goes 10-2, then I think, again, they're going to be a playoff team. They're probably going to be a playoff team that hosts in that 5-12, 6-11 range, maybe 7-10, depending on how the rest of the country shakes out. I just think year one, Kalen DeBoer will have a really tough time winning 10 games.
You mentioned that you think Texas and Georgia are the top 2 teams. That means that October 19th at DKR is circled somewhere.
Yeah, it has to be. I think that to me, sitting here right now, that's the game of the year in college football. There are incredible storylines. There are incredible matchups all around college football to start this season. I think it's LSU and Southern Cal right off the bat in Las Vegas. Like I mentioned, Notre Dame at Texas A&M, I think, is a fabulous opening weekend appetizer. But to me, it's Georgia and Texas. And the great thing is those 2 teams can play that game, and they might meet 2 more times after that, depending on how it all shakes out. They could meet for an SEC championship, and they could still meet for a national championship after that. I don't know if we're ready as college football fans and followers and media to see 2 teams play each other 3 times in one season, but that's the reality of the sport where we're entering it in 24.
Goodness gracious. I think a lot of people, like you said, aren't ready for that and had not considered that possibility. I know I hadn't thought that far along, but yeah, it's absolutely there the way it's all set up. And how crazy would that be?
Yeah, and no more divisions. And so you're going to see, I think, better SEC championship games now moving forward. Ditto in the Big Ten, better championship games. It's going to be interesting to see the ACC with its new membership, and can it hang on to Florida State? Can it hang on to Clemson? Can it have viability, true viability of any depth beyond those two programs? I'm not ready for college football season. I've still got another vacation I want to squeeze in, but there are as many subplots going into this year as any time in recent memory.
What do you feel like is a subplot that isn't being talked about enough?
I just think the continuing evolution of how we see NIL, and it's getting talked about a lot, but how do we see NIL trickling down? How far are we from seeing maybe a player sit out because of an NIL deal or not getting an NIL deal? I would contend that that's a really significant one. Another one that I've written about at length that Football Scoop that maybe doesn't impact this year, but is poised to come into effect in June of 25 is a June National Signing Day for high school prospects. And Marcus Freeman has gone on the record saying he's in favor of it. I think a lot of Big Ten, Pac-12, or whatever used to be the Pac-12, some ACC programs are in favor of it. It's my understanding the SEC is dead set opposed to a June signing period, but it's expected to pass. It would open in June of 25. You would have then players heading into their senior year who have already signed college scholarship players. Do we start to see high school players sitting out their senior seasons to prepare to enroll in college in January 2026? That's a concern from coaches, high school coaches who I've spoken with in multiple states throughout the country, including Tennessee and some other areas there in the South.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, look, but look at what we're seeing at the college game of guys sitting out bowl games if they're not playoff games, and you completely understand it. But at certain positions that are super volatile, a running back, all we hear is that running backs have been devalued in the NFL, that it's running back by committee, that running backs only have so much tread on their tires. If you're a five-star running back who signs next summer with Ohio State, how much do you risk, especially now that there's more and more money involved, especially now that I forget the number, but I think it's more than half the states in the country now allow NIL for the high school level. So as there's more money on the table, how do they balance that? What if a kid gets a great NIL deal at the high school level, but suddenly he signs with that power program next June and they don't want him playing, but he's got this NIL deal that he can't really cash that money without playing? I think that there's more we don't know than what we know right now in terms of a lot of these dynamics, because it's shifted so much. When I visited with you guys 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of this stuff we would have never thought to be talking about today.
Right. And John, we have heard stories historically about kids who have had, injuries that have limited them in their senior years. And there was encouragement from somewhere to not come back where they probably could have come back and finished out their senior year, but chose not to, to protect that injury. I mean, this just kind of turns that up a notch, I guess, or 3 or 4 notches.
And I think it's important to note, we've seen that at the collegiate level as well. We've arguably seen it for guys in contract years at the NFL level, especially if they were on an NFL team that was not challenging for a playoff spot. And if they were at a prominent position and already knew they were likely going to be parting ways with the team. We've seen it at all levels. This is just another way where, unfortunately, I believe the high school game will continue to mirror the college and NFL games.
It is a business.
It is.
John Brice of footballscoop.com joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. You're there in South Bend. The kid from Notre Dame, the kid from Wake Forest transferred in and played quarterback for Notre Dame this past season. What's quarterback situation look like up there this time around?
Well, it's another transfer. Riley Leonard from Duke, who is really super talented, missed most of spring. He had to have some surgery to clean up the injury that he actually suffered late in the game against Notre Dame last fall when he had nearly led Duke to the comeback win. And that ended up becoming an injury that kept him out of the rest of the year. Otherwise, he might have been in the NFL draft rather than spending another season in college football. And of course, they have mid-state prospect Kenny Minchie. He has looked really good. He got a lot of reps in the spring. He would be the number 3 right now, probably, or he certainly exited spring as the number 2 or number 3 with Riley Leonard on the shelf. He looked really good. There are only so many snaps to go around. There are only so many passes to be thrown. It's hard to forecast exactly where Kenny Minchie, where his career goes from here, but he's going to be a starting quarterback at the collegiate level. He has looked really good. He's really smooth. He has grown a lot in his fundamentals. Again, he's added zip to his ball. I think his accuracy has improved. Coaches love his approach, his demeanor. He's attacked the playbook. He's done a lot of spending extra time with Gino Gaduli, the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator. He's not been hesitant to pick the brain of Mike Denbrock, the new offensive coordinator. By the way, the Football Scoop 2023 Offensive Coordinator of the Year, as voted by his peers, not by a bunch of slaps like myself. So that makes it a better award. Kenny Minchie has a really bright future. It's hard to tell because guys transfer out of everywhere, whether it's Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. I mean, look, Quinn Ewers was at Ohio State for a semester and then back at Texas. And now, again, he's arguably quarterback of the number 1 team in ball. But Kenny Minchie, I still am very bullish on his future.
You know, you make a great point with that whole conversation right there, John. I mean, are we developing quarterbacks anymore, or is it just plug and play?
You know, Tom Brady had some comments that my colleague Zach Barnett wrote about over the past few days at Football Scoop, where he said he does not feel like quarterback play is as good as it used to be because it is more plug and play, because it is so easy to transfer, because guys aren't growing as much in a single system and really mastering it and going from there. You know, Sam Hartman spent 5 years at Wake Forest before spending a year at Notre Dame to try and learn a new system and better help himself prepare for the NFL. Very similar for Riley Leonard. He had spent 4 years at Duke, comes to Notre Dame as a senior with a couple of years of eligibility if he wanted it, I believe. But this will be his final year in college football. But those guys are a bit more the exception than the norm right now. A Jalen Milroe at Alabama is surprising. Ty Simpson still being at Alabama, I can tell you from talking to coaches around the country, is very surprising. Everyone thought that he would exit by the end of spring. Now he's got unique perspective because he's a coach's kid. He's been very well coached his whole life. He's been exposed to some tremendous camps his whole life. He's a guy that Jim Harbaugh, maybe people have forgotten, offered him as a freshman. He was so impressed. And Jim Harbaugh was not just throwing out offers the way some programs do. But to your question, it's a completely different world. Guys don't have to sit and wait. And it's like in women's fast pitch softball at the collegiate level. If you've got 2 great pitchers, you're probably not keeping both of those pitchers because a lot of those young ladies want the ball every single day or want it for 2 out of every 3 games on a weekend series. And it's sort of that way at the quarterback position right now.
John, you mentioned the quarterback position. You mentioned the Michigan Wolverines. This is a team that returns a lot after winning it all last year, but they also obviously lost quite a bit, including their head coach. There's some question marks not only about their quarterback position, but their schedule is really tough, including that game versus Texas in week 2. How do you size up the Wolverines heading into 24?
You know, much like Alabama, I expect a step back that we all see. I think that coaching transitions, then the quarterback transition at Michigan, they lost some very valuable offensive linemen. They lost a number of key players off their defense, the running back, a couple of wide receivers. So I expect Michigan to take a step back. I do. I think that Michigan's probably a 9-win team. I just think it's a much different schedule than what they're used to. And at least at Alabama, Kalen DeBoer has been a head coach at 2 big-time places already, at Fresno and then a power program like Washington. Sherrone Moore, as much as he's beloved and as bright as he is, and he is really heralded by his peers for how well he sees the game, he's never been a head coach before. And now you're all of a sudden a head coach in the Big Ten as the defending champs with a schedule like Michigan has never seen.
John Brice of footballscoop.com joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. You can find him on Twitter at John D. Brice1. John, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, boys, I appreciate it. Have a great summer. If I don't visit with you again before then, hope you and your families have wonderful 4th of July holidays. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll
John.
talk. When we continue here on Main Street Sports today, we'll talk a little baseball, particularly the Braves. Stay with us when we return to the Lee Company studio after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
May 18th, 2005, the ageless Julio Franco, okay, he was 46 years, 299 days old, became the oldest player in MLB history to hit more than one home run in a game. Franco took Cincinnati starter Eric Milton deep twice with a two-out solo home run in the first inning and a two-out two-run shot in the third, sparking the Braves to a 6-1 victory over the host Reds. That was this day in Braves baseball history. There.
The ageless wonder.
The ageless wonder, man. He's taken up a lot of TDIBH spots, and with good reason, man. And most of them were related to his age because he was upwards of 45 when he got to Atlanta, but he was productive for a team that didn't necessarily have a lot. So Good times, great oldies. Speaking of home runs, Ozzie Albies hit a solo shot in the 8th last night to snap a 1-1 tie and give the Braves a 2-1 victory over visiting Detroit. Max Fried pitched well, did not get the decision. Actually, Daysbel Hernandez out of the bullpen got the win for Atlanta. But that's 4 of 5 victories for the Braves here all of a sudden. And while the offense wasn't prolific last night, it was timely, I guess. So there's something to
little clutch hitting never hurt nobody, right?
Never. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's not how many, but when. And so Forrest Wall put the Braves on the board with a single in his 3rd major league start. So he had just gotten called up. JP Martinez got sent down over the weekend, I think. So yeah, good stuff out of the Braves. Again, they go again at 6:20 tonight. Former Auburn standout Casey Mize getting the start for Detroit, and Spencer Schwellenbach will go for Atlanta in that one. Meanwhile, Houston's at the White Sox. Framber getting the ball for Houston. Jonathan Cannon with a 4.56 ERA gets it for the White Sox. And, the White Sox are not very good. So Houston needs to pick up a few on this trip.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. They're close to double digits game back in the West. They're slightly, technically they're in the dead heat. They got the tiebreaker though on the Rangers at the moment, but they're 9 games back. And as talented as the AL is, kind of especially that loaded AL East, like we've talked about a bunch, they got some work to do and can't afford to dilly-dally versus a team like the White Sox this week. You're right.
Seattle starting to put some distance, huh? Yesterday was Paul Skeens Day. We neglected to observe, but he did. 6 innings, 7 strikeouts in a 4-1 Pittsburgh win over Cincinnati. So he is now 4-0 since coming up from AAA Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, they just might not ever lose as long as this guy's pitching. So as often as you can throw them out there, just let them rip. They might mess around and get back in this thing.
They are 2 games under 500 with that win yesterday. He's 4-0 with a 2.29 ERA, 53 strikeouts, just 7 walks in 39 1/3. And Pittsburgh has won 6 of his 7 starts. So the definition of giving his team a chance every time he goes out. Another guy that typically has done that throughout his career, Garrett Cole, is set to make his first start of the season during the Yankees series against the Orioles tomorrow specifically. So reigning AL Cy Young Award winner had nerve inflammation in his elbow during spring training and has not made a major league start to this point. So
Braves got the trip to New York coming up. I might miss him if the calendar breaks just right.
It needs to break just right. Yeah. I mean, whatever Garrett Cole's state is, if you cannot see him, you would just as soon not see him. So we will certainly be monitoring that in Braves country. Scrolling through Twitter as we are wont to do, there's an article on CBS Sports. Major League Baseball has informed farm system directors that the AAA level, which includes the Nashville Sounds, will pivot to using the challenge-based automated ball strike system in all games at that level. We've had Sounds officials. We've had Doug Scopel on with us, Adam English. We've talked about the system that has been used for automated ball strike calls at AAA that they've kind of been testing out using AAA as a proving ground. They've used full ABS, every ball and strike was an automated call rather than a judgment call by human umpires, was being used for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was a challenge system where the home plate umpires were actually making the calls. And then each team had like 3 challenges that they could deploy if there was a pitch that was particularly egregious in one direction or the other, I guess. So I guess slightly just before this, Manfred had said that the challenge system was, likely coming in Major League Baseball. So I guess they're trying to refine this at the AAA level before they bring it to the majors. But this is a interesting development, I guess, that they are going full ABS challenge on this.
Yeah, kind of just like you said, maybe tweaking things up just a little more, refining things before we could see this go potentially to the higher levels. And kind of while we were talking about this, I did a Google and got to go back to April, but the Stripers won a game earlier this year that ended on a challenge, which is kind of an interesting headline to read, as the call was made and then their managerial staff deployed a challenge, and it was actually called as a strike 3, and that was the ball game. So you had the rarely, if not ever seen, walk-off kind of challenge call.
Walk-off challenge.
which is kind of fascinating. So yeah, this will be fascinating to see how this plays out, right? Because obviously everybody's kind of just sitting here wondering around, what does this mean for the next for the big league level in the next coming seasons, you think?
If the ABS challenge system is adopted in the minors, then the question becomes whether that will be on a permanent basis or as a stepping stone to the full ABS. How soon the challenge system might make its way to the MLB is uncertain, but the logistical challenges are substantial given that players and umpires are heavily invested in the process. Personally, I mean, and I've been to Sounds games where the ABS challenge system was in effect and where the full ABS system was in effect. I like the challenge better. I like the human element, and I don't think we're ever going to lose that. I don't think they'll ever go beyond the challenge system personally. I just think it works better, gives more of a flow to the game, that kind of thing. So I think we'll all, if we're baseball fans, be interested to see where that goes and how that develops. But I think the challenge system, as again, as we've talked to various folks about it, I think the challenge system has kind of emerged as the preferred system of ABS. So
yeah, I'm with you. I feel like we're going to see full robots that fill in as umpires before we're likely to see the umpires kind of. We're not going to lose umpires, I don't think, until we got full blown Fox style robots zooming around the park and making the calls. I think you're right. I think we'll see the humans around until, kind of like our guest coming up in a moment, until we don't.
There we go. Nice segue there. Hour number 1 of Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, under our belts. When we return for hour number 2, we will be joined by the Blue Raider voice, Chip Walters. So stay with us when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely, and no better person to start the second hour than the Blue Raider voice, the pride of the dimple, Chip Walters. What's going on?
Don't know it. It is a hot, kind of overcast afternoon here in the borough today, but it has been kind of a one of those. We haven't even officially gotten to summer yet. When that comes, Thursday afternoon?
I think so.
And one of the, I guess it was the morning weather this morning, predicted that, I think it was tonight, that we were going to have the highest low temperature on this date ever, or something like that. So it'll be a warm, muggy night wherever you might be in the mid-state.
You know what's messed up about that, Chip, is somebody told me a couple weeks ago that the Farmer's Almanac had said it was going to be kind of a mild summer, but very wet. And at the time, we were in the midst of like a crazy number of days of rain. And I was like, I don't know, that don't sound too great. Now all of a sudden I'm thinking mild and wet sounds kind of all right now.
Well, we everybody's grass still looks good because we did get so much rain, and there were, the showers that popped through yesterday or the day before. There were, we got zero here. And I saw somewhere up around Gallatin, they got like 4 inches, or it was crazy, but it was all just pop up wherever it was. But anyway, I'm not here to show off my meteorological skills, but
it does stand to reason though that at Choose Chip would be noticing those lush green yards.
That's right. And for anybody looking for a lush green yard of their own, I can hook you up. There's no question about that. But I've always said that baseball coaches and broadcasters are probably the biggest weather nerds around. So by necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. Chip, what is going on in Murfreesboro other than the heat? Hey, you were supposed to get over to the rec center and check out some hoops last week and report back to us on something.
Well, I did. They actually worked out in Murphy Center,
Okay.
and I know they work out again this week. But I'll have to go check and see if it's in Murphy Center or the rec center. But the men's basketball team, all of their players except for Isam Mustafa have all reported, and Mustafa is at home in Egypt working out with the Egyptian national team.
Okay, now that's what it was you were supposed to find out. Is that a team that will be competing in the Olympics, or what exactly is the status of the Egyptian national team that Isam is working with?
Maurice, you take too good of notes because I don't have an answer for you on that just yet. So
you're going to have to take an incomplete on that summer assignment, huh?
Now the question is he working out with the full team, or is that the 3-on-3 Olympic basketball that he's playing?
Well, that's a good question. I've seen video of him, and he would work well, I think, in a 3-on-3 scenario because he's got just a ton of moves, good footwork, good hands. He's 6'11", about 280, something like that, 260, 270 at least. He's a big boy and had a great, he averaged a double-double in his first 2 years at Coastal before going to TCU. What I can tell you is after going to watch him, I was very impressed with Kamari Lands, the transfer from Arizona State. Kamari is, speaking of a guy who's got really good moves at 6'7", 6'8". He is the height of Elias King. Probably does not shoot it quite as well from three as Elias did when Elias was at his best, but still pretty decent. But he also, he's thick and he enjoys contact. So that really, I think will pay dividends for him. They do a one-on-one drill and they keep score of how the guys do one against the other. And Kamari, out of 8 times they had run that drill with him, he was 6-2 and had only been beaten once by 2 different people. But otherwise, he was running a clean sweep. He is going to be a guy that I think Blue Raider fans are really going to like, and gives them a forward with some beef. And if you can, think about him in there with Mustafa and Chris Loof, that combination, I think that has an opportunity to be pretty good. Makes your front court pretty exciting to think about. And then all the guards you've got right now, this is shaping up to be a very talented group for Coach Nick McDevitt.
Now he's not Bam Bam Rainey, DeAndre Dishman thick.
No.
Okay.
Talking about Lands. No, he's not like that. He is. Let's say this: if you put another 10 or 15 pounds on Ty Bainham, he's more like that.
Okay.
Right.
I'm with you.
Or if you made Marcos Knight 2 or 3 inches taller, one way or the other, that would, I think, for middle fans, I think would give them a good comparison.
There you
go.
Now
the women's team has been working out as well. They posted a video and when you have an international player that goes home for a few weeks, you always are interested to make sure that their plane landed and got back over here. And Anastasia Boldreva went back home to her native Russia. And I saw the video they put out of practice or a workout the other day, and she is in the video, which that allowed me to sleep a little better at night. But,
visual confirmation.
She was there, and they worked out. They've worked out a couple of times this week early in the morning because Murphy Center and the rec center have been packed with the second week of high school team camp on the women's side, and our buddy has his Warren County Lady Pioneers.
Well, of course,
mixing it up over there with some of the best around.
I thought I saw Tamia Scott in some of those Lady Raider videos, and that's always good to see.
That's a good thing too. Yeah, she and Jalen Gregory and Matt Insel, and maybe some more. The guy that does the Blue Raider podcast does a really good job with it. He's not connected with the athletic department. He does this private podcast, does a really good job. And I haven't seen it all yet, but I did see that all three of those people are at least on his latest version of it.
Okay. While we're talking about basketball, a development with Conference USA, they will be acquiring their officials from a different pool this time around than previously. Is that correct?
Well, they for the last, gosh, ever since we moved into Conference USA, Conference USA had their men's basketball officials were assigned by the same group that did the Big 12, and that was that they had the Big 12, I think the WAC, Conference USA, but each one of those big officials groups does several leagues. It's my understanding that they are, or Curtis Shaw had been the assigner in that group there. Whatever went down, and Conference USA has decided that they're going to they're going to go back to, or go to the SEC assigning group. Mike Eads now does the assignments for the Big 12. The SEC has a similar group of schools. They're gaining Conference USA, but also have done in the past, used to do the OVC, Southern Conference, and also the Sun Belt. But the thing is, the fans will likely not notice much different at all, because most of, I would say, 85 to 90% of the guys who are in the Big 12 pool are now in the SEC pool as well, and get assigned by both of those leagues for different games and different dates and all of that. So it is a little bit of difference, but there may be some of the younger officials that we did not see in that were assigned when we were with the Big 12 officiating group, that that were part of the SEC group working their way up, that we'll probably see on some non-conference and maybe Saturday conference games. So we'll see. But a lot of the same faces when it all gets said and done.
Is it more of a geographic thing? Maybe
I don't know what was behind it, but because the Big 12 was a Big 12, Conference USA are both headquartered in Dallas, and so I think that was a part of the convenience, maybe that where that came from. But for whatever reason, the Conference USA parted ways with that officiating group and has joined the SEC group now.
Okay. Chip, while we're talking football, what is the latest? What's the latest chatter, the goings-ons, if you will, with the football program?
Well, they had a starting a week ago last Friday. They started their camps, and the first day, which was 2 weeks ago for this past Friday, or a week ago this past Friday, they had a 7-on-7 tournament and had 12 different high schools there. And I don't know what the results were of the tournament, but they seemed to be pretty happy. Came back last week and had their different specialty camps, everything from specialists to wide receivers, skill players, and then they had their big man's camp. And then last Friday night had their, I think they called it their Friday Night Lights camp, which was kind of their elite camp, in which everybody has one of those these days. And so they're they're completed with that, and now they are in what Coach Mason calls player-led practices and workouts. I don't know that they call them practices, but player-led workouts, which this is the time of year now until the end of July. You will have the guy that will have the most contact with the players on the coaching staff will be Jamie Blatnick, who is the strength and conditioning coach, and I'm sure that word is making its way from the coaching staff to the players who are leading these workouts of what they hope that the young men are working on. So that those take place, and those took place over the last several years as well. And Scott Schaefer, I think 2 summers ago, really made a big deal about how well the leaders, in particular on the defensive side of the ball, then like Reed Blankenship and some of those guys, how what a good job they did of leading those player-led workouts. And now you've got Nick Vattiato, who is an absolutely stand-up guy on the offensive side, and making sure I'm sure he's making sure his offensive linemen are going through some drills because they'll be his best friend as they move along. And speaking of Reed Blankenship, happened to run into him one night last week here in town. He was out having dinner, and I didn't even see him. But as he was leaving, he stopped at where I was and said hello. He goes, I said, man, I didn't even see you over there. He goes, oh, I heard your voice. He goes, I had to stop and say hello and all that, but he's doing good. Looking forward to getting back to Philadelphia, and just, has gotten entrenched in the whole Eagles situation, but still just the same good dude that he's always been from Athens, Alabama. So that's him.
He heard the Blue Raider voice. There you go. Chip Walters coming soon to a restaurant near you. Just listen for his voice. No, Chip, Chip was one of my favorite guests because he sends a cheat sheet. And one of his mentions here is MTSU has 14 football players on the Phil Steele /Athlon lists. Is that for All Conference USA?
Yes, preseason All Conference USA. And I'll go real quick. We'll tell you first team selections: linebacker Parker Hughes, long snapper Brody Butler, and tight end Holden Willis were first team on one or the other. Running back Brian Bruton, who is a new face to the program, was a second team selection. Omari Kelly, who really showed out in the spring game. He's a wide receiver transfer from Auburn, second team all conference. Nick Vattiato, Holden Willis, Devin Curtis were on Phil Steele's third team. Athlon's third team had Frank Pizant, offensive lineman Julius Pierce, linebacker Drew Francis, and Devin Curtis. And there is a fourth team, and fourth team members for Phil Steele were Brendan Harris, who's a safety and a transfer, place kicker Zeke Rankin, whose dad will be going into the National High School Hall of Fame in about 2 weeks. Punter Trey Turk and cornerback Tyrell Raby were on Athlon's fourth team. So that whole list is on GoBlueRaiders.com, but that's a pretty good number. And in particular, when you have a handful of those that are guys who have not played in this league, but are guys who the Athlon crew and Phil Steele know well enough from their previous stops to say, hey, these are guys who are going to come in and make some noise in Conference USA.
Their reputation precedes them. Chip, you mentioned tight end Holden Willis, and is that accurate, I guess, for lack of a better phrase? I mean, I know he's a big-bodied wide receiver, but is he actually going to be lining up
in this
Down
offense,
inside or
in this offense, he will be a tight end. But that tight end, whether he is tight to the line of scrimmage or looking more like an H-back or a slot receiver, Holden Willis is just, he's just an incredible football player.
Man, let me tell you, I saw him when Greenback played in the state finals up at Tennessee Tech one year.
I was going to say he set the Class A record for touchdowns that year, his senior year at Greenback, and Kelly Holcomb and I had that game on television.
Okay,
and he was our featured player for Greenback going into the game, and his mother told me that year, number one, they won the football championship. Their basketball team, which Holden was a part of, made the boys state tournament, and their baseball team won, which he was a part of, won the state baseball championship.
Wow.
So, and he was, a starter on all three. So
he's a fantastic athlete. Signed with South Florida out of Greenback, is that right?
Yep. He was at South Florida for a couple of years and is back here and seems to just be loving life. And his mom and dad are really happy that the drive to come watch him play is probably about a third of what it was trying to drive to Tampa from East Tennessee.
Of course, now once you get there, it is Tampa, but still,
it is Tampa, and then there is St. Pete and Clearwater.
Yeah, but I mean, he is certainly athletic enough to be an impact guy, whether it is at tight end or slot or wherever it is. I'm looking forward to what he's able to do in this offense because
I am too, because Bodie Reeder, the new offensive coordinator, they want to have a power run game, but without taking away from what they're doing in the vertical pass game. And Holden Willis is a guy that can, fit just however many different roles you need him to fill when you hear that description of what they want to do offensively this year. And so, I think I'm really interested to see when they get back out for fall camp and start having some contact of what this offense is going to actually look like.
Yeah, should be fun. Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. You can find him if you're not already following him, and I can't imagine that you're not, but you can find him at Choose Chip on Twitter. Yep. And if you're buying or selling, give him a shout.
I love coming down to the Dimple and doing some work down there. One couple things I want to make sure we mention. Payne Denman.
Oh yeah,
Payne Denman, former Blue Raider golfer, now assistant Blue Raider golf coach to Mark McIntyre, won the Tennessee State Amateur last week out at Tennessee National, and this is the fourth different TGA title that he's won.
Wow. So, going back to his days at what, DeKalb County? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And he has been terrific, and now he is in the golf coaching business and has been a huge asset to Coach McIntyre. But he is, I think he pretty much led it most of the way last week and ended up shooting 14 under, and brought home a title. So
does that
really
give
tickle
you
for him?
Does that give you a little extra street cred with your guys?
I would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, it would be like
bragging. Yeah.
It'd be like, Nick McDevitt going out and winning the 3-point shooting contest at the Final Four. I would say that would get you a little cred right there. And it's like maybe those guys that I don't want to mess with Payne,
Yeah.
It was it like
maybe he does know what he's talking about.
What is it? Virgil Herring says on Sunday nights it'll be
your hand out
and their wallet out. That's right.
Love Virgil. He's fantastic. So is Chip Walters, the voice, the Blue Raider voice. Excuse me. Let me get that right. The birth. Thanks for joining us, man. We will catch up with you next Tuesday.
All right. See you, fellas. See you,
Thank
Wade.
you, Chip.
When we continue on Main Street Sports today, we're getting closer to Top 5 Tuesday, which I don't think we talked about. But Wade and I will be giving you our top 5 summertime activities. Should be fun. In the next segment, though, it's the grab bag. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, there was a basketball game last night that we probably should talk a little bit about. So we will do that when we return to the Lee Company studios after this break.
Hello, race fans, and welcome to Nashville Super Speedway.
That's right, guitars and fast cars right here in Music City. This summer, NASCAR is back at the Nashville Super Speedway. Get your tickets now to watch your favorite driver take on the 1.33 miles of concrete chaos. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to lock in your spot June 28th through the 30th for the Ally 400 race weekend.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Wild horses are coming to Franklin. The Mustang Heritage Spectacular. 4 days of celebrity freestyle, liberty training, trick riding, and extreme Mustang makeover. Plus the shopping. Over 100 vendor spaces with clothing, food, home goods, and things you can't find anywhere else. All that and celebrity signings at a music stage too. June 20th through 23rd at Williamson County Ag Expo Park. Don't miss a moment with a weekend pass. MustangHeritageFoundation.org for tickets.
Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. As we mentioned at the end of the last segment, our final segment of today, Wade and I will give you our top 5 summertime activities, even though it's not officially summer till Thursday, allegedly. But right now, yeah,
tough time believing that.
I'm kind of struggling with that when given the meteorological information that Chip passed us just now about the record low and that kind of thing for today. So yeah, it's hot outside, but It's not summer hot, but it's hot. Boston 106, Dallas 88. Boston wraps it up in 5 games at home, as we pretty well expected. The gentleman's sweep. But I was getting my haircut earlier this morning, and the talk at the barbershop was, how did the Celtics just turn it on and turn it off like that? I mean, clearly they just wanted to clinch it at home.
Sure felt like that. It also helps that from about 6 minutes in the game, Luka just looked like he didn't really care to be there. Looked like he was ready to go ahead and get down to Cancun. Take a ride at Disney World. Looked like he was ready to be anywhere else. And Boston was more than willing to take advantage of Luka's kind of indifference. Worthy champions, though. They were just an electric team all year long, and for all the kind of pick aparts and the consternation about them, they just kept finding different ways to win, and they did it again last night, and they made it look relatively easy.
8-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the NBA Finals. I mean, that's pretty dominant. And do you just throw that Game 4 performance out?
I mean, you kind of almost have to. The crazy thing, we've talked about it on the show, games 2 and 3 were there for the taking. Game Dallas. 2, especially on the road for Dallas. And then game 3, we talked at length about Luka's kind of disappearing act that he pulled there down the end. But, yeah, nobody is going to remember this. This will be, in the grand scheme of things, a relatively uneventful finals. But it was there for a brief moment. But you got to tip your cap to the champs because they made sure that it was just a brief moment and not a full-blown moment.
Jaylen Brown, your finals MVP, drawing 7 of the 11 votes. Jason Tatum getting the other 4. But again, like I said, I was getting my haircut earlier today, and it felt like Brown was unanimous at the barbershop for sure.
And that is interesting. And I was fully expecting last night for Tatum to swoop in and steal this thing. He almost had a triple-double last night. He finished 2 rebounds shy. And Mo, down the stretch, he was just getting – this is by the time that the Mavericks were essentially waving the white flag. And he is just padding the stats. And I kind of started wondering, is he going to swoop in and steal this thing? Because I thought for sure Brown was your choice. But just kind of the narrative I just felt it shifting. And so when they hand the trophy to Brown, I was surprised. And the cameraman and even Tatum, even though he was smiling and saying the right things, I think he was a little surprised last night as well. And that kind of perfectly embodies this Celtics team. Even though they win it all, there's still just kind of a random little hint of controversy, as it were.
Brown averaged 20.8 points, 5.4 boards, and 5 assists in the final series, and was the primary defender on Doncic. So,
and that's the thing that I was afraid was going to get overlooked. If you just glance at the stats, you might see Tatum last night, and in a closeout game, to win the series, you might just give it to him. So I was very surprised that it didn't end up that way, and then also. It kind of just reaffirmed, just made me feel good about the process, the way it played out. You could also make a really good case for Drew Holiday, who Giannis, in a roundabout way, basically shipped out of town. And then Holiday ends up, hop, skips, and jumps his way from Portland over to Boston, and now he's the one cutting down the nets. And it was kind of funny the way that played out because it seemed like at one point he was essentially a castaway from the Bucks.
Brown was also the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So, and early in the series, after game 1, Jason Kidd called Brown the best player on the Boston team. And as you were saying, something always feels maybe just a little bit awry in the Boston locker room, and many thought that was an attempt on Kidd's part to maybe stir some stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, if you're him, you gotta do it. Because they had no
Little
real
gamesmanship, huh?
Yeah, that was about the only trick he had left. And man, I'll tell you what, Mo, though, it was really, really cool to see Al Horford win his title. And
Former Atlanta Hawk, Al Horford.
yeah, you know, that's the joke on Twitter last night. That's the closest the Hawks will ever get to another NBA championship. I didn't make that joke, but several others did. But Al Horford, the first ever Dominican to win an NBA title, too. Just a crazy, wild journey for one of the all-time greats in terms of just overall basketball career. And going back to those 2 titles at Florida, now he's got the NBA title to go with it.
You know, going back to those 2 titles at Florida, who would have ever thought that Al Horford would be the last guy in the NBA off those teams?
Yeah, I mean, just a testament. I mean, Noah had a fantastic career too, kind of bogged with a few little injuries along the way, but he was an elite player for a long time. But you're right. I mean, Horford just kind of, I mean, ageless. And it was so cool in the post game. Everybody to a T is just, I mean, Tatum, I mean, he flat out said it. He said he's the best teammate I've ever played with. And Horford was getting all the praise, all the attention, and rightfully so, because it was such a cool moment that they kind of were able to send him. If that's his final send-off, you know, he could very well come back. But for a guy that had been there, what did I see? He's eclipsed Karl Malone for the most games or minutes. I forget which part of that stat, but either one of those. He's eclipsed Karl Malone until last night, the most minutes or most games played in the postseason without a title. So it was cool to see that. We got a little Steph Pritchard right before halftime last night. Awesome stuff. He had already hit one, and then Mike Breen, this is why Mike Breen is one of the best in the business. Pritchard gets in, and he says, hey, watch out. He can pull up from here. And boom, he does right before halftime.
He pulls up from there.
His only 3 points of the night. I mean, everything was clicking last night. Former Grizzly Xavier Tillman, he didn't even play last night, but he gets a ring now. He had a big 3 a couple games ago. Porzingis got in. Vanderbilt got represented with Cornette getting a couple minutes down the stretch. I mean, it was a cool scene for the Celtics last night. Beantown was rocking.
You know, you mentioned Cornette, and we joke about there's always, you know, a Nashville connection, but I don't think Cornette is the only Nashville connection to this Boston Celtics championship.
Well, you got Jaden Springer, right, from the former Vol. Maybe not a Nashville connection, but he gets a ring now.
Apparently, former Belmont guard Drew Hanlon works with Jason Tatum as a skills development trainer. They both are from St. Louis, and Hanlon also works with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, and Tyrese Maxey, among others. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's always a connection, and that is a cool deal, too, because a lot of those guys, you know, whether they're how quote-unquote official they are on the staff, you know, those players, when they have that attachment with those trainers and those handlers, man, those are as good as gold more often than not.
Yeah. So the NBA season is over. The NHL season could end tonight. How much does a 7-goal loss stay with you? Even though you're going back home, even though you're up 3-1, I mean, 8-1 has to leave a little bit of a mark, doesn't it?
I think so, Mo. And you know, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think Florida probably maybe even does win tonight, but we talked about it yesterday. Bobrovsky gets pulled out of the game, and that's just kind of a deal where, you know, maybe there's a potential little lingering. Maybe he suddenly kind of has the yips, quote unquote, if you will, or whatever the equivalent thereof would be for a goalie. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if he lets in even if it's a close or competitive game, but imagine if he lets in a couple kind of cheapies.
Or if he gives up a couple early tonight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then who knows what happens. And we said it a couple of times last week, toward the end of last week. This is the one sport and the Leafs, what do we say, back in like 42 or 52, they have
38,
done it.
I think it was.
Yeah, they've done it before. It's been done in the NHL before. It's not as inconceivable that as it is in basketball. I still think Florida wins, obviously, the series, but the door is a little more ajar than I think certainly it was last night with the Mavericks.
You were right. It was 42, excuse me, that the Toronto Maple Leafs overcame a 3-0 deficit to defeat the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
My grandpa will be rolling his grave at that one.
What time does that one start tonight?
7 p.m. puck drop tonight. It's down
7
in
p.m.
Sunrise, and yeah, it's
Sunrise.
I will be tuned into that one because you are 100% right. If this is a situation where Edmonton, maybe they ride that hot hand, maybe Bobrovsky gives up a couple of cheapies. Who the heck knows what happens then?
Goodness
and
gracious.
then you're going back to
and then
Edmonton,
you're going back to Edmonton,
which will be rocking.
With fans who thought that they had seen their team for the last time Saturday night.
Yeah, now, the crazy thing is they already busted out the big guns, Mo. They had Shania Twain do the pregame show the other night.
Bring her back.
I mean, yeah, at that point, clear the schedule. You ain't going to get any bigger, and you ain't going to get any better, so you might as well bring her back and try and do whatever you did well in that last home win.
And you know what else? You don't mess with a streak, right?
Yep.
So, Gallatin kicker Max Kelly. And I have to admit, I wasn't up on Green Wave kickers, but made a visit to South Carolina over the weekend, a recruiting visit, and soon thereafter committed. The kicker punter is the number 14 kicker and the number 36 punter in the country, according to Cole's kicking camps. 5-star prospect as a kicker, 4.5 as a punter. Not sure what he's going to do for the Gamecocks, but 6'2", 210, all-region 4-6A and all Sumner County specialist as a junior, converted all but 5 of his extra points with 9 field goals, including a 45-yarder in the state playoffs. Averaged 38 yards on 29 punts, including a 61-yarder and 9 that were downed inside the 20. Dad, former Gallatin and Liberty University kicker Jay Kelly, scored 178 points in his college career and was an honorable mention All-American back in 2001. So he comes from a good kicking lineage, and he's headed to Columbia, South Carolina to kick. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, solid specialist. And you obviously know this as well as anybody, Mo. Man, how big of a weapon is a great kicker, whether it's punting, kicking, or even just kickoffs going into the end zone every kick? How much of a weapon is that at the high school level?
Offense, defense, and special teams. I mean, when you are being successful, you got all of them clicking. And so sounds like a big get for South Carolina. Definitely a big move for Max Kelly. Congratulations to him. He's not the only local kid who has made some collegiate plans, though, apparently, because Isaiah Groves announced earlier today that he will be signing with Georgia Tech as part of their 25 recruiting class. The Indians reigning Class 2A Mr. Football, in which he beat out Mount Pleasant's Darian Mesa, by the way. 3,510 all-purpose yards, 37 total touchdowns last year as they advanced to the state finals in 2A. He and his older brother will both be playing in the ACC as Elijah signed with NC State back in December. So he's going to be a heck of an engineer, I guess, Isaiah Groves is, signing with the Ramblin' Wreck.
No doubt. Have not seen either of those guys play football. Seen them play basketball a couple times, and if they're even remotely as good on the gridiron as they are on the hardwood, yeah, those are two big gets. And that's good for Isaiah to go ahead and lock that up and get ready to rock and roll down at, was it Bobby Dodd Stadium, right?
It is indeed. Running backs coach at Georgia Tech, by the way, former Vanderbilt standout Norval McKenzie. So Coach McKenzie coming back to his old stomping grounds and getting one 3-star prospect, number 2 running back in Tennessee's 2025 recruiting class. Picked the Yellow Jackets after visiting Northwestern and Minnesota. I can see how you would pick Atlanta over Chicago and the Twin Cities. Makes perfectly good sense to me. But yeah, congrats to both those guys. I mean, and I just think there's something whenever you can get that out of your way going into your senior year. That's I just feel like there's got to be something really positive about that. So good luck to those guys. Have we emptied the grab bag? Oh, Men's College World Series. Couple of things right now. Florida State leads North Carolina 7-5 in the bottom of the 6th. This is an elimination game. The winner will play Tennessee tomorrow, and that game will start an hour later than originally scheduled. Apparently, they are expecting some inclement weather in Omaha tomorrow, so that game will be a 2 o'clock start local time instead of a 1 o'clock start there. But Florida State leads North Carolina 7-5. The late game today will be Kentucky and Florida, both playing for their College World Series life after Kentucky lost yesterday to Texas A&M and Florida eliminated North Carolina State. So
speaking of which, I saw this when we were talking with Chip. That game's already been moved because of the anticipated weather. So, yeah.
Oh, the Kentucky-Florida game has?
Yep. So they're going to play that first thing in the morning, 10 a.m. Central.
Oh, so they're not even going to try to play it tonight.
Yeah, that's what caught me off guard. It just said postponed, and, I assumed weather, but they went ahead and just pushed that one on back for tomorrow.
Well, I guess that explains why they pushed the UT game back then. And then, is that Kentucky-Florida winner going to have to play again tomorrow night?
Presumably, but I would assume you try and keep that thing other than tonight as close to on schedule as possible. But
right,
that's a great question.
Let's see if we can grab a bracket real quick, an updated bracket.
Because that would be, talk about a long day and a crazy whirlwind of emotions.
Yep. Florida and Kentucky will play at 10 Central Time. Tennessee will play the winner of Florida State, North Carolina at 2 Central Time, and then Texas A&M will play that Florida-Kentucky winner at 6 tomorrow.
Whew.
So, man, that's going to be a tough haul for whoever wins that early game. But they're young. They're used to it.
Yeah, they got that youthful exuberance about them.
There we go. Come back for the final segment of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, it's Top 5 Tuesday. Wade and I will give you our top 5 summertime activities. Stay with us after the break.
Are you the biggest race fan? Main Street Media and Rackley Roofing are teaming up to send a family of 4 to the Rackley Roofing 200 truck race at the Nashville Super Speedway on June 28th. All you have to do is head to your favorite Main Street Media site and click on the Rackley banner to win.
Tuesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And it is Top 5 Tuesday, presented by Mid-South 5 Fitness. 2 locations, one in Franklin, one in Columbia. Thalys Steel. You can find them at Steel Athletes, STEEL athletes.com. Whatever shape it is you're in, Thalys Steel will get you in a better one. So reach out to him. He'll hook you up. Top 5 summertime activities. Wade, this was your idea. I'll let you go first.
Well, Mo, we're sitting here. We talked about the weather and how hot it is. These are similar but different, but I'll start. Your classic example that everybody's going to think, or at least I would think, how about just plopping down at the beach? I know the sand is 1,000,000 degrees and, there's some other stuff that goes into it, but how about going to the beach and just kind of unplugging a little bit for a little summertime getaway?
That's my plan for the weekend, actually. And it was also my number 1 pick. But yeah, that's unplugging with something cold to drink. And yeah, jump in the water every now and then. You got to be careful jumping in the water down at the Gulf, though, because there's been things in the water that aren't necessarily supposed to be that close to the coast. So
gotta be on your P's and Q's a little bit.
You got to be on your P's and Q's. Pay attention to those flags down there. But yeah, the beach. Since you have taken my pick, I will go to my number 2 pick, which is being on a boat somewhere on a cruise. It doesn't have the sand, but it's got the unplugging aspect of it, and it's got the something cold aspect to it, and both those are huge. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Opposite ends of the spectrum. I like to go all over the place. But give me a good old camping trip too. That's a hot, literally, depending on where you're at, summertime activity. Give you a camp, give you a bonfire, make you some s'mores, check things out. I'm going with camping and bonfire for number 2.
My number 2 is, now that I have one that's working, throwing something on the grill. And I'm kind of a lazy griller. I love my gas grill because I can go from deciding to grill to actually having something in about an hour and 15 minutes. I like the convenience. I feel like charcoal is probably better, but just the convenience of going out there, flipping a couple of switches, having some heat. I like a gas grill, and I love to grill whenever I get the opportunity. So that's my number 2.
I'm with you. The grill snobs of the world will come after us. And
I get it. I don't disagree with them. I like that convenience of staying and not fighting to get that charcoal lit and dealing with wind and everything else that goes with it. But maybe that probably indicates that I'm not very good with the charcoal, but that's okay. I don't have to be because I've got a gas grill.
I'm with you. I just saw somebody reshared the Family Guy clip of the big green egg. That's another, offshoot of the grill snobs there. And
oh yeah.
Peter had to help move it, and the whole thing falls over and cracks. And well, then that's not good for anybody. So I'm with you.
No.
Yeah, give me the gas and just let's get this thing rolling.
That's it. You're number 3.
Number 3 for me. I got a couple that I'm going to choose from, but how about an amusement park? Yeah, it's 1,000,000 degrees. You got to wait in line, but that's about as old school kind of Americana as you can get. Give me the amusement park, with the kids just running around and screaming. Maybe I'll change my tune when we get a little bit older. But for now, just being out and getting a little amusement park, whether it's roller coasters or a water park, even both of those, I'm okay with.
My number 3, if I can't get to a beach and I can't get on a cruise, just hanging out around the pool. Again, just unplugging with something cold is it's good. Just vegging out for a little bit. So
absolutely,
yeah.
get a good book and just kick back by the pool and just relax.
Boom.
That's about as good as it gets.
Yep. Number 4.
A little outside the box, but what about going to the movie theater? We don't hear as much about it anymore, but the summer blockbuster, maybe not quite as much of a cachet as it used to carry, but I remember just, growing up in the summertime, sometimes you just go out and check out what the hot movie's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. Again, I got my hair cut earlier today, and they were talking about Bad Boys 4.
And that's exactly what you're thinking, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's, in this day and time, if you're going to the movies, as my guy was saying, it's got to be something really good if I'm going. And it sounds as if Bad Boys 4 may qualify. I had my doubts about it initially, but yeah, maybe that's it. I like to try during the summer to get down to, I guess now it's Cobb County, and catch a Braves game. It's about 3.5 hours, so I don't go nearly as often, and it's way more expensive than it has any right to be. But going to a ball game, chilling out, watching my team, drinking something cold. There's a there's a theme here.
You into a theme here. I like it.
There is a theme here, but I mean, it's summer.
Yeah.
You gotta stay cool.
Speaking of, it'll still be summer on Tuesday, August 6th, when they give out, they're bringing back the Outcast bobblehead night this year, which is going to be fun. And they've got the Ludacris bobblehead. I think it's in late August or September. So
I think that one's in September. Yeah.
Chance to check them out, which will be good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're getting into football season at that point. And it gets a little tougher to get away. So, yeah.
Well, for Outcast or Ludacris bobbleheads, there should be an exemption, I feel like, in our contracts here. So maybe
you might be onto something. May have to check out the fine print on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, extenuating circumstances. Mo, last one for me. This is another kind of family tradition. Well, literally a family reunion.
Oh, you're killing me.
Hot in the streets in the middle of summer. Whether we do it at Davy Crockett, we've had them here in Giles County. We've had them all over the place. The family reunion, sometimes fun, sometimes not as fun, but kind of always something that we think about when you get into the summertime.
Ours is the 4th Sunday in July, and it has been since before I was born. And people want to make it the last Sunday. It's like, no, it's the 4th Sunday, because sometimes there are 5 Sundays. I mean, there have been arguments about this actually, but
there's rules to everything too, right? Yeah,
there really are.
That'll ruin a family reunion real quick when you start getting into the rules on stuff.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, that was going to be my number 5. Maybe I should have popped it up there a little earlier, but I will check off slightly. Most of my class reunions have been in the summer. Now, they made an exception, I guess, for our 20 year, and did it on a high school football weekend, a fall weekend, which I was only able to go on Friday night because I had responsibilities on Saturdays at the time. And so when I voiced my displeasure with the fall class reunion, I got added to the reunion planning committee.
Now, there we go.
But the last couple have been in the summer, so hey, whatever works. Class reunion, we'll go with that.
Yeah, if you're on the committee, then you're in pretty good shape, right?
Then you got a little bit more say so in what happens and when it happens. So yeah, that's our top 5 summertime activities. They're brought to you on Top 5 Tuesday by Mid-South 5 Fitness. Again, a couple of great locations, one in Franklin, one in Columbia. Thalys Steel taking care of you. You can find them at Steel Athletes, STEEL athletes.com. Whatever shape you're in, Thalys Steel will get you in a better one. That's going to do it for today's Main Street Sports Today. Tomorrow we will be visiting with Heather Williams, talking a little NASCAR, and I'm not sure what else we'll talk about, but I'm sure we'll find something between now and 2 o'clock tomorrow. So be sure and come back to the Lee Company Studios with us and see what it is. Again, this is Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll see y'all tomorrow.